for that. I know that there's some of us that are concealed carry. Can I have everybody who's got a firearm on them just give us a cheer and a raise of a hand? Yeah! You know, I have never felt safer in my entire life. I feel really good that there's not going to be an incident here. Because you want to know something? The only thing that will stop a bad man with a gun is a good man with a gun. And if you really want to stop a bad man with a gun, get a whole bunch of good guys with guns together. I see everyday people. I see moms and dads, gym coaches, delivery men, pastors, grocery clerks, young. I seen kids here in their mother's arms, and old. I seen senior citizens here. We're spanning every race and every creed. We are Americans. We believe in the Constitution. And we are gun owners. Now, I want to hearken you back to another cold winter about 238 years ago, where other Americans gathered together, their faces contorted in anger and discontent under the tyrannical rule of King George III. I agree. Now, with the stroke of a pen, maybe in the confines with some kids standing around him, old George, he'd create laws and taxes that enraged our forefathers. The words "no taxation without representation" and "don't tread on me" became engraved on their hearts and always ready in their mouths as a battle cry. They were farmers and businessmen, cobblers and tinkers. They were you and they were me, average Americans, and they were gun owners too. It was a time for action on what was described by Samuel Adams as a glorious morning. In mid-April of 1775, the place, Concord Green, Massachusetts. Major John Pitcairn, a soldier of the Crown, had marched his troops from Lexington with a notion to destroy the gunpowder stored there in Concord. It was a gun grab, guys. And thus, effectively, he would disarm the Minutemen. Suddenly, a history-changing event happened. A shot rang out and would forevermore be known as the shot heard round the world. That shot came from a rifle owned by an American patriot, and it would define from that day until now who we are and what we are. We are Americans, and we will not be the subjects of tyrants. Now, the gun grabbers and the left-wing media would have you to believe that this was, oh, so very long ago, that we have somehow evolved, that we would be safer without the American citizen privately owning firearms. To that, I recall this account from a mere 53 years ago. In 1960, Robert Maynard was a commander aboard the USS Constellation when he was part of a meeting between the United States Navy personnel and their counterparts in the Japanese Defense Forces. 15 years had passed since VJ Day. Most of those at the meeting were World War II veterans, and men who had fought each other to the death at sea were now comrades in battle who could confide in each other. Someone at the table asked a Japanese admiral why, when the Pacific Fleet devastated at Pearl Harbor and the mainland U.S. forces in what Japan had to surely know were in a pathetic state of unpreparedness, Japan had not simply just, invaded the West Coast. Commander Maynard would never forget the crafty look on the Japanese commander's face as he frankly answered the question. "You're right," he told the Americans. "We did indeed know much about your preparedness. We knew that probably every second home in your country contained firearms. We knew that your country actually had state championships for private citizens shooting military-type rifles. We were not fools to step into such quicksand." Did you know that the AR-15 is mandatory for Olympic shooting? Did you know that? That's the rifle that they're calling a military weapon. You know what it is? It's a semi-automatic rifle with plastic furniture on it. I have both an AR-15 and a Ruger Mini 14, and you know what? They work the same way. The only difference is that Mini 14 is about 4 pounds heavier. We are a free people today because we are promised the right to keep and bear arms. We are free today because the armed American citizen is that last great line between freedom and tyranny. We are free today because we are armed Americans. Now, there are those who say we need safety and to trust our government. Well, after all, they have our best interests at heart. We can be secure in the knowledge that they are benevolent and that they certainly know best. In fact, noted CNN personality Piers Morgan, I had no idea when I wrote that you would boo so loudly. Piers Morgan said that he felt both the Bible and the Constitution were out of date and needed to be rewritten. As both a pastor and an American, I think Piers Morgan should go back to England and stay there. In fact, I'll be the first one to take up a collection to buy him a one-way ticket back to Heathrow.
They don't want him back. They don't even want him.
Now, Daniel Webster, he told us of these types of people. He said, good intentions will always be pleaded for every assumption of authority. It is hardly too strong to say that the Constitution was made to guard people against the dangers of good intentions. There are men in all ages who mean to govern well, but they mean to govern. They promise to be good masters, but they mean to be masters. You know, I can only imagine the outrage if we were to talk in this country of outlawing free speech, though it is quite clear that speech is very dangerous indeed. Why, even the Epistle of St. James says, "But the tongue no man can tame. It is an unruly evil, full of deadly poison." Words are evil. Evil, I tell you. Poisonous. Yet there's no call to outlaw the tongue. Remember, when tongues are outlawed, only outlaws will have tongues. Oh, and you know what? Don't get me... Thank you for the one dissenting voice in the middle of 1,000 people. Oh, and by the way, don't get me started on religion. Abraham, Moses, Martin Luther, all of them seditionists. Shaking the very fabric of society. And of course, the very worst of them would have had to have been Jesus Christ himself. Did you know that he challenged every government of his day? Definitely, he was a danger to society. Yet there was no call to ban religion, no matter how many dangerous ideas it promotes. You know, come to think of it, if the press, including things like Facebook and Twitter, do nothing to stir up dissent and draw crowds that make a lot of noise in front of public buildings, do you hear what I'm saying? Noise is dangerous. Noise is dangerous. Noise is dangerous. Heaven help the misguided politician that would seek to limit any of these rights given to us in the First Amendment of the Constitution. There would be outrage the likes of which had never before been seen in this country. So why then should there be any less outrage when they seek to abridge the Second Amendment, the one that protects the First Amendment? We say no! We say no! We say no! We are armed Americans! And in our hearts and in our mouths, we join with the Minutemen in Concord today and say, no taxation without representation. Don't tread on me. And to that, we add one more. No new gun laws. No new gun laws. No new gun laws. No new gun laws. Are you hearing me, Harrisburg? Are you hearing Washington? No new gun laws. No new gun laws. I want to thank you all for your attendance, for your kind and thoughtful participation. I want to thank you all for making me feel safe today. For those of you who are of the body and the family of faith, after the rally is over, right over by that tree over there, I'll be holding a prayer circle. It's not necessarily part of this rally, but it is part of who I am. And if it's part of who you are, I invite you to join us. God bless you.